I started in this workshop as a boy, straight from school, 14 years of age, as a first-year apprentice on the 13th of December 1954. And I was petrified, as all young schoolboys were, but that was the start of my career, and I loved it. And I worked in most workshops. I progressed right through, and worked in the country depots as well.
What made you decide to become an apprentice here? Was it in your family? My parents said they want to send their two boys out to do something better than they were, because my dad was a workshop labourer and a tram driver and a crane driver in the government trams. And he said, I want my boys to be something better than me. Was he proud of you then?
Absolutely, yep. We both succeeded in joining the railways, I first and my brother second. He's 3 years younger than me. There, so we enjoyed it. We took pride in being able to be trained by the railways. One of the best centres in industry.
Did you discover any stories this morning that you remembered, or that you thought, oh, that would be a great story to record? I really, that's important. You know, I'd like to share that if I get a chance today. What sort of things did you talk about in your circles?
We talked about we talked about what we were doing, what we were going to do. We talked about music, because we were all members of the railway band in my era.
What was that? Tell me about that.
Well, the New South Wales Railways had a band. They met every fortnight down at the Railway Institute, and different fellows from my era plus oldies. We all played instruments, and we used to play in the railway band. We would march at ceremonies and things like that. But I got sick of that, so I played the harmonica after, which wasn't part of the band.
So you played in the band.
Yes.
And that was at Eveleigh? And you were at Eveleigh?
It was Eveleigh here, yes. Here.
So did you always work at Eveleigh?
No, I worked at Eveleigh for about 4 years. Then I started to move. I went to the country depots, and then back to Eveleigh, where I was fortunate in getting a cadetship, a cadet engineer. That meant that I had to get rid of the overalls, ultimately, and put on a tie. So I did.
And what was that like to go from being an overalls boy to an office member? Very,
very subtle, it was like cutting off one part of one's life and going into something different. Different circumstances, different controls. Whereas the workshop was a disciplinarian type environment, being in an office was more so. Very regimented, everybody was Mr. You could not call anybody by their first name. It was very, very strict. But we slotted in and we worked our way through the system. We did all our tech courses, and ultimately we become engineers, and that started us on the mammoth rise of going through the various ranks to become ultimately production managers, maintenance managers, assistant managers of workshops and works managers.
And did your relationship change with the others?
No. It didn't change with the people on the shop floor. You had to show respect for both parts. You do, when you go from being a shop employee to a manager, it's a subtle transition, but if you don't change, everything is good, and you get the respect that you should get when you are a budding manager or a budding engineer or whatever.
What stories did you tell today?
As a young budding apprentice, or as an apprentice, putting the fire hose on the person who greased the machines.
Tell me that story.
As tradition, us young blokes used to grease the machines of the other people that come in, the junior boys, so that they'd work their lathes and they'd get black axle grease all over their hands. So they would go crook. One of them in particular tipped a a bucket of water over me. He knew who it was. So I said, I'll fix you, I'll give you a good wash. So I grabbed the fire hose, didn't I? Turned the fire hose on, but the fire hose didn't come through straight away. By the time it come through, the workshop supervisor had walked past, copped the full brunt. I was carpeted, I thought I was sacked, I thought the world had come to an end. But it was good, it was good. I learned my lesson. Yeah, I learned my lesson. But it was all part of the system. Like music, we love music. Certain supervisors didn't like music. And we'd play our mouth organs behind machines in the afternoon, about 2:30, and the foreman or sub-foreman used to come around looking for this music. And we would move, and he'd follow us, and he'd move, and so on. He never did find us. But it was good fun. Yeah. And we sit back now and laugh and say, hey, it was part of growing up and part of our existence.
Is there any other story you told today that you'd like to share with us now?
Well, there are a couple of stories, particularly in the workshops where, over in Carriage Works Eveleigh, which has got nothing to do with Loco, as an engineer, a young engineer, they used to play tricks on the management and engineering staff, and we loved that. But Bill Casley, he mentioned something about running naked down 8 Road, which was great. We had a similar incident where it was either the foreman carpenter who was under my direction or myself to strip down to our undies and run down 8 Road if things didn't go right. But fortunately they went right, and I didn't have to do it. But as an engineer you feel, well, hang on, I should show a little bit more finesse. But it was part of growing up, it was part of our railway heritage, because here, this place is an industrial city within the city of Sydney. The Railway Hospital Fund started here. It is now the R&T, one of the most respected hospital funds in New South Wales and well, in Australia for that matter. The Railway Credit Union started almost in this workshop with two of the clerical officers who started it. That's the Railway Credit Union. It's now in Compass. Two of our clerical officers formed the Railway Building Society, which St George ultimately took over and are now running. We here did not have to get any equipment in from anywhere else. We manufactured everything ourselves. We had our own gasometer, we had our own electricity at Whitebait Power Station, we had our own water system, we had our own electricians. The biggest foundry in the Southern Hemisphere was just over the road here. We could make anything. Our files, our saw blades, all made here on site. We had the best locksmith workshop anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. The best locksmiths and security people ever. There it is.
You're making me sad. You're making me sad.
It is an industrial city within the city of Sydney, and we were self-sufficient. Absolutely self-sufficient. We had to get paper, we had to get all those other odds and sods, the ancillary things and light consumables, but nevertheless, this is how this workshop operated. We had a full-blown first aid sister and a doctor on call. We used to run first aid courses, and we used to run competitions. When you completed your Railway Ambulance Corps badges each year, after you got your life membership, you were accredited with 1 extra day on your annual leave, just for going every year for 10 years to do your first aid. And there was a lot of people who did first aid.